5 minutes past 10, our talkback lawyer David Whiting is here to answer questions about the legal system. 1300 222 774. If you want some free legal advice, 1300 222 774 is the number to call in order to ask David a question. And good morning to you, David.
Good morning, John.
The annual report of the courts was released this week, and the Chief Justice, Marilyn Warren, who's now retired and been replaced by Ian Ferguson, the Chief Justice said she saw that the legal system and judges at every level were under unsustainable pressure of workload, saying that it's just, you can't keep asking people to work this hard on this many hours, on this many cases, and the system is at risk of collapse. And there have been a number of instances of some quite distressing and upsetting of judges not managing, not coping, and the workload just being overwhelming. First of all, is she right? And secondly, what should change?
She is right. I think it's I don't know. I've always thought it's a mixture of premises and people, and and you wonder. I mean, longer hours. I describe my practice as commitment time and fulfilment time, and you make a short promise that might require you several hours to fulfil. Whereas if you go and see a doctor, most of the work that they do is while you're in front of them. Mm-hmm. And I see that courts are like that as well, so that you'll spend. You culminate in time before a judge that might be 1 day or 2 days or 3 weeks. And then all of that material needs to be gone off and analysed and thought through and the law applied before the judgment is handed down. But there's every chance that all of that occurs while the judge is sitting in another matter.
So there's enormous amounts of work done behind the scenes.
Yes, so you turn around and on one view, judges' hours are fantastic. They're 10:30 till about 4 o'clock with an hour off for lunch. But they're the times of intense concentration, and most of the judges that I see have read all of the material before everybody turns up. So they might have read 300 or 400 pages or more of material before there's a party in the court. Meticulously
going through it in order to work out how to try and save the court time by zeroing in on the issues that really matter.
Yeah, and then making sure that the lawyers do exactly the same thing.
And then tell them when they try and distract you or chase a rabbit down a burrow, no, we're not going there, and here is why. Yeah. And not be overturned on appeal.
I think that's always the big fear. You'll get overturned on appeal, and the more pressure you put on the court system, the more likely that there will be an appeal. Yep. Because the opportunity to make a mistake just enhances. Yep. So I think the answer is more people.
There are judicial officers in this state who are dealing with mental health issues. There are people
on both sides of the bench. Yep.
Yeah, and there are people dealing with the insurmountable pressure, they say, of work, the distressing nature of some of the material they have to deal with, and given that the county court is now 50% sex offences, which never used to be the case. It used to be, a small part of their work. Now it's 50%. It's the single biggest thing that comes before the county court.
And what support do you provide to the judges who have to look at all of those images to work out what penalties might be?
And over and over again. And a lot of them are saying, this is not what I came here to do.
No.
So, really important issues. Magistrates want to be called judge instead of magistrate?
Yeah, they say we're a judicial officer. We would like you to consider the change of our title. I mean, what we did some years ago was we moved from your worship to your honour. So I think the rationale at the moment is that if you think the magistrates' court were mainly staffed by JPs, and then that moved to the point where the magistrates were effectively officers came from Crown Law type activities or from previous clerks of courts.
Clerks of courts who graduated to being magistrates.
Yeah, and the benefits given to magistrates are pretty good, but they're substantially less than the benefits in employment sense that are given to judges. Mm-hmm. So I don't, if everybody was a judge would be called Your Honour, it would make sense, or a magistrate. So I don't have a problem. I don't have an issue.
No, it's just about making the courts more user-friendly, isn't it?
Yes, Your Honour, no, Your Honour. Is that user-friendly, is it, John?
Well, it's better than having to say Your Honour or Your Worship and knowing which one is the right protocol and getting into trouble and feeling all awkward or embarrassed because you're getting it wrong or being marked down for it and all that nonsense. So, yeah, it's instead of it being a code, it should just be simple and plain and uniform.
And then there's the Royal
Sorry, in
Commission.
breaking news, Dustin Martin's father has won his appeal against deportation. Dustin Martin's father has won an appeal against the deportation that meant he missed out on seeing his son play in the grand final, so he will eventually be allowed to return to Australia unless there's further appeals. Sorry, that's just flashed across the screen.
No, I saw it, John, but I if it's 10:10 and he's won his appeal, then there hasn't been a hearing. It may well be that the Crown is elected to put in no evidence. Who knows? Anyway, then there was the Royal Commission was announced in the last week.
Into the banks?
Yes. There was a report in the Financial Review last year about who it would appear that every law firm that's going to be appearing has already been appointed. They were appointed last year, according to an article in the Financial Review.
In anticipation
do we know
of
if
it,
it's going to be Melbourne, Sydney or Canberra?
Ken Hain, the former High Court judge, has been appointed, and my understanding is it's more likely to be based in Melbourne than anywhere else.
Yep.
And there are a lot of orthodontists very happy about that.
I missed that. What, the orthodontist?
Because now all the lawyers can afford to get their kids' teeth straightened.
Oh, okay. I was thinking of the lawyers themselves, John.
Right? Oh, no, that's second. That's primary. This is secondary. The knock-on effect. So, yes, there's a lot of... Suddenly the price of houses along the Great Ocean Road just went up a notch.
Okay. Assisted dying legislation came through.
Right.
And from a day-to-day point of view, electronic conveyancing took an extra step. As of last Friday, it's not possible to lodge a caveat over the counter at the Land Titles Office.
At all?
No, they're all required to be lodged electronically.
Okay.
So,
because the Titles Office is being fattened up for privatisation.
Well, they've sold one in New South Wales, and they're planning on, they're considering a sale of the one in Victoria, but there's a question mark over precisely how much of it's going to be sold. Does it include the Valuer General's office? Does it include survey? All those things. And that's it.
1300 222 774. Robin in Narre Warren has a question about exactly that, about certificates of title. Hello, Robin.
Good morning. Look, we purchased a block of land here in Narre Warren South 19-odd years ago.
Yes.
We're now trying to sell. We've had a Section 32 done, but the title is nowhere to be found. We don't have it. The conveyancer doesn't have it. Where do we
the conveyancer wouldn't have
now?
acted for you 19 years ago. Did you have a mortgage?
No, we didn't.
Okay. You start at the Land Titles Office. Can
I get in touch with the Land Titles Office?
You can probably, if you can, I'm not sure you can do the search electronically, but you can certainly do it over the counter.
Right.
But it's pretty slow over counter. You do what's called a cellar search.
Right.
And a cellar search...
That doesn't mean down where the wine bottles are kept.
Yes, it does. Although I must say the Land Titles Office is now high security. They've taken over part of the Immigration Department's space in number 2 Lonsdale Street.
Right.
And what you're looking to find is we call it an issue advice.
Right.
Who did the Land Titles Office last send the title to and when?
Right.
And that's where you start.
Right.
And you might find that it's a firm of lawyers that doesn't exist anymore. Do you know who acted for you when you bought?
Yes, we do. I've been in touch with him and he said he hasn't got it.
And, of course, it's 19 years old. He won't have records of what he did with it.
Well, he said he has records, but he's lost his book.
Okay, cool. All law firms have a thing called a lodging book where you write all these things down. Yeah. So that's where you... but your application for a replacement title starts with the issue search.
Okay.
And what you then do is you make an application to the Land Titles Office for a replacement, and the forms that you need are on the Land Victoria website.
Right.
So you can download the forms that you need, and it's effectively you make the application and you complete an affidavit that says these people acted for me when we bought it. We never took the title from them. We've never pledged it. We've never offered it as security. We've been to our bank. we've looked everywhere it might be and we can't find it,
So
and we
there's a
undertake
format
to
that
deliver it up.
You can copy
Yeah.
a format there.
Yeah, we'll promise to return it to the Land Titles Office if we ever find it. You then get a declaration from the solicitor who acted for you 19 years ago,
Right.
and he says, I accept that I got the title from the Land Titles Office. I have checked my deeds and, I don't have it, and if I ever get it, I will hand it over.
Okay.
And you pay a fee. And the fee is, I think it's capped at about $600. So you pay an application fee of perhaps $140,
Yep.
and then you pay what's called a contribution to the guarantee or assurance fund,
Right.
and that's capped, I think, at about $600.
So you're up for a couple of grand.
Yep.
Alrighty.
About a couple of grand.
Yep.
Sorry,
Okay.
Robin.
All right. Thank you very much for your advice.
Thank you,
All right,
Robin.
and good luck
Thank you.
with it. Margaret in Cranbourne, you're through to David.
Yes, good morning. I live in a very nice retirement village. I'm very happy, but rabbits are coming from over the road where they're building. Now, I phoned the council and they say they can't do anything about them because they're an introduced species and management here won't do anything about them.
What do you want to do to them, Margaret?
Well, we want to get rid of the rabbits.
Why?
Well, they're eating all the garden and everything.
They're beautiful.
I know, I like rabbits. I had one when I was a kid as a pet, but
They're really cute.
What does the committee of the residents at the retirement village say?
yes, well, they put it to the management and they say they're not going to do anything about it.
And is the assumption that as soon as the building's finished over the road, the rabbit problem will go away?
Well, I don't know what they're assuming, but they won't do anything about it. So,
Have they given you a because?
yes, I wish I'd got the letter in front of me, which I haven't. But they think it could, I suppose, dead bodies, and if they put poison down, there are people who've got pets in the village, but they shouldn't be running over people's gardens anyway. But anyway, they won't do anything, so I wondered what can be done about it.
Do you have an owners' corporation?
We have yes, there is a retirement villages corporation.
Okay. Margaret, it may be that you've got the ability to take them... the question I would next ask is, this is the view held by everybody or just you?
No, well, we got a petition of just 6 people in the road that I live in.
Out of how many in the village?
Oh, about 200.
Well, see, in a sense, there's the problem, is that you need a lot more people on your side,
Yep.
so that it's not Margaret's view that holds sway, it's the view of the people in the village.
Yes.
Because it doesn't logically follow that the 200 should accede to your wishes.
No, but
So-
I mean, so you're saying there's nobody's responsibility really?
Well, responsible for what? I mean, there's a responsibility that the management at the village will have to look after the property.
Yeah.
But that's not the same as the management to look after the property the way Margaret wants it looked after. You might have the ability to take the matter to VCAT, and I'll let you know for next week. But my thoughts is that, you've got to get a whole lot more of the other 194 people on track,
Right.
because if 194 people don't care and only you do, and your other 5 friends, there's no basis for the change.
Alrighty.
No. Okay, so I'll get a petition round the village.
That would be a start, Margaret.
Or hold a meeting, call a general meeting for the purpose of discussing the rabbits.
Alrighty.
Right, thank you.
Thank you.
Len in Kattunga, good morning. You're through to David.
Good morning, David.
Good morning.
I've got a question for a backpacker we took to Melbourne on Saturday. We were celebrating Finland's 100th year of independence at the Melbourne Town Hall.
Sorry, who's Finland?
Finland, yes.
Yeah.
Right.
So it was a fairly big do and all the rest. And we were, after the event, we were hopping in a taxi, going back to our motels.
Yep.
And he said, listen, I'll meet you there later on.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, he arrived many hours later because he was picked up for being drunk in a public place.
Yep.
Later on, and issued I think it called
an
on the spot
infringement
fine.
notice. Yep.
Infringement notice of $600.
Yep.
And being a backpacker, and that his question is, could he challenge it to either receive a smaller fine?
Yes, he could. He could
or
take the matter to the magistrate's court and say he wants to address the court on penalty. When is he leaving the country?
Well, he's in the process of doing 88 days in the country to
extend his visa, so he's not leaving for a while.
No.
Right, then he can go to the magistrate's court and says it ought to be less. Who's going to produce the evidence that he was well behaved?
Well, that's a good question, because I believe he was well behaved.
No, I understand that, but if he was well behaved, it's extraordinarily unlikely that the police would have felt the need to issue him with an infringement notice.
Look, I know he was
quiet drunks are the ones that don't get tickets. Boisterous drunks are the ones that do.
Oh, okay.
As a general principle. So I think I would be, you might like to ring the police officer who signed the infringement notice,
right,
and you might get a better view of how well behaved your colleague was.
Mm-hmm.
And that, to me,
how maybe not well behaved he hasn't told you about.
I just can't see a
doesn't
person who's been drinking and behaving is going to even catch the eye of someone with a police badge.
It happens for a reason, Len, and maybe the person who's so drunk they're fined is not the best explainer of what was going on.
Possibly.
So just keep that in the back of your mind while you're going through the process, okay?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Len.
Susan in Heidelberg, you're through to David. Good morning to you.
Susan.
Early.
Hello.
Oh, today. Hello. It's just that I can't understand why you can't talk about court cases outside your own house when you won a case.
Well, you can.
Well, it depends what sort of case it was.
And it depends whether there were any orders that were required for confidentiality. Sometimes people resolve civil actions, Susan, and they resolve them in a deed that requires confidentiality. So you might sue me or I might sue you, and we might come to a settlement that involves the payment of money one way or the other, perhaps a denial of liability, and perhaps a clause that says, I won't bag you and you won't bag me. Now that prevents that. On the other hand, if you were... and
there are suppression orders sometimes for protection of children or vulnerable people for particular reasons.
So you see from time to time sex offences where the name of the defendant is not disclosed, not to protect the identity of the defendant, but to protect the identity of the person whom they're charged with interfering with.
Or witnesses.
Yes.
Or so as not to upset cases that are still coming through the pipeline behind that case. Susan, there's all sorts of reasons sometimes.
But the general principle is that you're able to talk about them. But you've got to... Beg your pardon?
The person told lies that, it was her fault my daughter had an accident on a bus. And it was her fault that the ambulance got lost, and it's only 15 houses from my house. And
I don't want to go into the details of the individual case, Susan, but as a general principle, David's answered your question in general terms without going into the details of any individual case that you've been caught up in case some of those rules do apply. I mean, David, there's privacy rules.
Yeah, but what's happened in the court is a public record, open court. If there's a suppression order, it's for a good reason, and it's very rare. They exist for the purpose of protection of justice, not for the protection of the privacy. That's not a primary purpose for a suppression order.
On text messaging, I'm being hammered by Anne and a farmer and other people saying you are an idiot if you love rabbits. They are destroying wildlife and making life impossible for farmers. In relation to our caller who said that she didn't
Margaret from Narre Warren.
Yeah, didn't like rabbits coming from across the road. Someone else says just build a rabbit-proof fence. Adopt them as pets. Interesting. Aren't landowners responsible for controlling rabbits as a listed pest species, says Jackie. Leave the bunnies alone. Shame on you. Someone else offering to come down there and dispose of them in all sorts of horrible ways. So it certainly triggered a significant response.
An emotional response.
Yeah, very much so. Lively response. Kim in Hawthorne, good morning to you.
Hi, good morning, John and David. Thank you for taking my call. First-time caller.
Doubly welcome.
Thank you. I just wanted to explore the legalities of drones in built-up areas or residential areas.
Yes.
Last week I had a fellow working as a plumber on my house, and he noticed that there was a drone over my house and over the next door house over a period of an hour and a half.
There are
Terrifying.
regulations. There are regulations that restrict the operation of drones over residential areas.
So what I should do is make a police report?
The difficulty with the police report is how do I, it's a drone.
We don't know.
I see a dog that I've never seen before, I'm never going to see again, but I'm really upset that the owner let it loose.
Yes.
And I go and report to the police and say there was this large brown dog.
Wow.
What can they do with that? So here's a drone somewhere between, 100 and 400 feet above your property. Its colour, its brand.
If you don't know where it's coming from and whose it is, what are the police going to do?
No, okay.
So that's the. Do you have the right to complain? Yes, you do. Have they broken the law? Probably.
Yes.
But if I can't find the defendant, I can't charge them.
What were they causing you any discomfort or harm at all, Kim?
Discomfort in that I wasn't at home, so but I spoke at length with the plumber, and it was.
Wasn't you supervising his work, was it, Kim?
No, and we've got a building site next door, so my thought was that it was somebody supervising the work next door, which it wasn't. And it literally, the drone went down about 200 feet, and it had a camera, and it was pointed to the house.
Sometimes it's just kids mucking around. Sometimes it's the neighbours whose house is coming up for sale and the real estate agent's taking pictures. You just don't realise that's what's going on.
Yes, I understand that. It just seemed to be an awfully long time. And
Kim, you've got to find out who it is.
Okay.
And then you can do something.
All right.
Okay.
Great. Thank you.
Good luck. Heidi in Wanturna, good morning to you.
Oh, good morning. It's not strictly a legal question, David, but I heard you talking about land titles.
Yes.
And I'd like to get my affairs into order and also need to transfer the title in my name. My husband is a deceased estate, and I'm the surviving partner.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I wonder, can I do it myself?
Yes, you can. Is the property in joint names?
The property is in joint name.
Okay. You can download the forms from the website for Land Use Victoria.
Yes.
You can print out the forms. Effectively, it's a one-page application coupled with a declaration signed by you that says that you are you're the surviving proprietor, that your partner died on, and your means of knowing how you know that he died. And you take that, your driver's licence and your passport to Land Use Victoria, which is number 2 Lonsdale Street. So the application form, the statutory declaration, the title, and you'll need your driver's licence and your passport as evidence of your identity.
So I download the forms and I have to get a
statutory declaration. The form is there. You've just got to fill it out properly. You've got to get it witnessed, and you take them to Land Use Victoria.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you.
Okay, but do it before the end of March because the rules change then. Okay?
I'm glad I spoke.
Thank you, Heidi.
Right.
Good on you, Heidi, and thank you. Lots more text messages, not
about
just
rabbits?
about what to do with rabbits and casseroles and various recipes. Rabbits are registered vermin. It's the responsibility of the management to eradicate them. They're a pest species. Andrew in Point Lonsdale reminds us they cost the economy $130 million annually. They're an invasive, damaging species. So thank you indeed. Further correspondence, 0437 774 774 if you feel determined to do so. Malcolm from Ascot Vale, good morning to you.
Yeah, hi John, hi David. My issue is as regards the delivery of a product. We got a quotation from a shutter manufacturer in July. We've had some adjustments. We've had 2 representatives out looking at the window. There's a window winder that was in the way, and one of the representatives said to me, "Look, can you narrow that?" And I did. Went and bought a new winder and put it in. Mm-hmm. The end result was here we are in. The people came in mid-November to put the shutter in. So that's from July, the quotation, through to mid-November. The guy came to put the shutter in. No, it's not going to fit. The winder's in the way. It just ain't going to work. Now, here we are in early December, and I had a phone call. I've been making phone calls to this company.
Supplier,
to the supplier, and saying, look, it's been nearly 6 months. I've had enough. We've had reps out here. No one's commented that it hadn't been able to be fitted. And I've had a gutful, and you're now providing me with a solution that in 12 to 13 weeks you can redesign it and have it, installed, and it would fit.
But why don't you? Do you want to enforce the contract, or you just want your money back?
No, I want my money back. And I want to, and I just said, look, enough's enough. Now
VCAT?
You can take the matter to VCAT, but your first option, they've built something that doesn't fit. They've got to start the design again. They're effectively where they were when they first quoted.
Yep.
So before you paid them any money. So why don't you simply say, can we just go back to that point?
Yeah, and no way. And when I said, look, I want a full refund,
then you can
take the matter.
You can take the matter to VCAT, and you have rights under the Australian consumer law that you should look at.
Right, and their view was that they're still willing to provide the product, so why am I going to VCAT? I should just, accept the product. And I'm saying, well, no, not now. And I guess my question is, look, do you think that I have some leg to stand on at VCAT? Is it worth progressing down that line?
Well, my view is you've got to give them a short opportunity. You don't need to give them a particularly long one. And you do have, the answer is they've failed in 4 months to deliver what you've contracted for, and you simply would like to call the contract to an end and get your money back.
Yeah, and it seems pretty simple to me, and they're quite resistant to that.
I would be too. Their profits in the stuff they haven't done.
Yep, exactly, and they've got materials that they can't fit anywhere else.
Yep. So when push comes to shove, Malcolm, if you're not getting satisfaction, that's the advice.
Thank you very much.
Take it up to them. Can we squeeze a few more in, Dave?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Is that possible? It's my last opportunity to force you to do overtime.
Thank you, John.
In 2017. More of David Whiting with a few more of your questions after the news headlines, which Tim Callanan has for us, and thank you, Tim. Jackie in Baldwin, good morning to you, and you're through to David.
Good morning. Thanks for taking my call. Look, I was on my way to work Tuesday morning, just after 6 a.m, and I actually had an altercation with the garbage truck. I saw a car coming the other way that got through, and I came up behind the garbage truck and stopped, and he stopped. So I thought that he'd seen me, and I moved forward, and as I started to move forward, he moved forward.
Whoops.
And yes.
Low speed connection?
Oh, I was only doing about 10.
Yes.
And unfortunately, he was obviously moving to pick up the next bin, so I had to wait. Then I was able to squeeze through. I got to just the end of the corner, got out of the car, had a look, and went back to him and said, didn't you see me? And his reaction was, I just pick up. The first thing he said to me was, could I move? Because you had one more bin to pick up, and or one more bin to empty. Mm-hmm. And I then said to him, didn't you see me? And he said, I just look for bins. I just pick up garbage bins.
Yep.
And because I was...
So you're heading one direction in a street.
We're both going the same direction.
Okay.
Right, but if you both moved forward, you wouldn't have collided. Or did you move forward at a bit... Were you going to go past him, were you?
I was going to go past him, yes.
Yes, yeah.
And he had, as I came behind him, I had stopped. He had stopped, and I made the assumption he'd seen me and was allowing me to move. So I started to move forward.
What part of your car hit what part of his truck, Jackie?
It's the rear passenger side, obviously the passenger side, so along the back door and along the back door.
All right, so you got substantially past him.
Yes.
And then he kept moving.
Yes.
Okay. Yep.
Now, I didn't exchange details. I was probably because it was early in the morning, and I was a bit shocked and thinking, "Oh, you're an idiot." And also, I needed to.
Was that a self-reflection or a reflection on the taxi driver?
Self-reflection. And so I did take the details of the truck, and I contacted the council, but you can only do things online, so I had to send an email. I've taken photographs, and now I'm just sort of wondering what I do and what I need to do, because I can't help thinking that I am an idiot, but at the same time, my husband said I should have exchanged other details, but...
you should have, but, the answer is the council knows who you are and you know who the council is.
How much is the damage to your vehicle?
I haven't followed up yet because I haven't had the opportunity. I'd say certainly a couple of thousand.
Jackie, I'm in favour of the garbage truck's view. I would have suggested that you've endeavoured to pass it. I don't know that you're entitled to assume that the truck has stopped for the purpose of allowing you to pass.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, well, that's what I wondered.
And that would be my reaction. I would then suggest that there might be some contribution, but what it looks to me is that you've cut in front of the taxi, in front of the truck, at a time when there really wasn't room.
Have you got insurance, Jackie?
I do have insurance.
I think that's what they're there for.
Okay, all right. That's all I needed to know. Thank you very
Jackie.
much.
Peter in Wonthaggi, good morning to you. You'll be our last caller with David today.
Okay, thanks, guys. David, I'll start off now. The Commonwealth Government, through the Department of Foreign Affairs, has a program that places volunteers overseas on assignments.
Yes.
There are 2 NGOs that recruit to this program, one in Victoria, one in South Australia. I have had 2 assignments with the Victorian NGO and was on the way to my 3rd assignment with the South Australian NGO a week before departure, when the Victorian NGO became aware and sent a statement to the South Australian NGO that I was unsuitable for the assignment.
Yes.
I haven't seen the details of this.
Yeah.
And where do I go? How do I manage this? What courts have jurisdiction? Blah, blah, blah.
I think you would need to start with the identity of the South Australian NGO, because they're the people who are who have not taken you on the basis of this advice. You need to look and see what your appeal rights and review rights are under the legislation that governs them.
Well, I've done that, and I've gone through their internal grievance procedure, which is really a joke, because essentially they've said, we've considered your matter, but because you aren't on assignment with us, we really can't consider it. Go away. Go and talk to DFAT. But also I have a concern in the long term, because as of December the 31st, there will only be one provider. That will be the Victorian provider, because there's a new contract.
Have you spoken to the Victorian provider about why they said you were unsuitable?
There's a backstory here. I had an assignment in a country. I lodged a grievance against their country manager for a whole variety of age and gender discrimination issues. I'm 67. Yep. I won that grievance. The CEO directed that country director to undertake training, but at the same time as me lodging the grievance, they lodged a code of conduct breach against me, and subsequently asked me to leave the assignment. Yep. So my view is they are still holding a grudge against me, and my concern is that in the future I want to be able to apply for these assignments with only one provider now, and they have a bias against me. So really my issue is...
Sorry, I'm not convinced. The question will be whether there's a review of management or a change of management at the organisation. I think you want to go and try and talk to somebody rather than write them letters and insist on your rights, because at the end of the day, they still are going to have a discretion as to who they appoint to take these particular tasks on. And it might be that if I was to know all of the facts, I might have sympathy for a view other than yours.
So is it about restoring a relationship rather than asserting this particular moment in the relationship was interpreted wrongly?
I think it's not about I have a right to go. It's more of you need to be satisfied that I'll be a team player when I go.
All right, I hope that helps you, Peter, and you may need to talk that through in greater detail with someone as well. David, there's countless text messages about rabbits, many of them repeating much the same material, although the suggested compromise is Michael from Mitcham saying rabbits are a cute invasive species.
Yes, okay, I'm with that.
And a number of people saying that CASA, the Civil Aviation Safety Authority, is the controlling body for drones. There's all sorts of new technology you can use to try and track down where they're from and who's controlling them. And in fact, they have a website, CASA have a website with drone information that answers a lot of frequently asked questions about drones and who's in charge of what and who's allowed to do what.
Hawthorne should look at CASA.
And yes, there's a lot of information there about what you are and aren't allowed to do about drones and what you should do if you're concerned they're being used inappropriately.
Thank you, John.
David, thank you very much. You've, other than the odd little slip away for very good reasons you've provided
From time
us.
to time, John.
Yet again with year 812 of Sterling service on this program.
21, John.
21 on this program,
Yep.
and years before that with other people. And again, I know how much the audience appreciate the work that you put in.
John, I've enjoyed it. I'll see you next year.
It's wonderful. You'll be. I think you can come in next week.
I'm here next week and the week after with Steve.
Steve Martin from Regional Radio will be in the chair, and I will miss you, but look forward to seeing you next year.
Is that right? Thank you, John.
No, a great deal, and I owe you lunch.
Everybody says to me, what's John like? And I said, well, I speak to him for 4 minutes a week for 20 years. Yeah. So we're developing a slow friendship. Thank you, John.
There are other occasions, and we have occasionally seen each other outside of the studio, but not enough, and I owe you lunch. So
thanks, John.
That'll come through too as well. David Whiting, our talkback lawyer, helping you with free legal advice.